there was something spilled from social media that Annie Cushing posted. She posted on a social media group a letter to Melani Gibb. I'm a little bit confused about it because was it given directly to Melani Gibb or not? At the end of the letter, she tells Melani to share it on Daybell. So most likely it's been shared over there. It has also been shared in a lot of places, including it was shared to me. But I feel like it's important to share it with you. It was initially shared with a Facebook group that has 8, 9, 10,000 members. And allegedly it was shared there. So I am just going to tell you about it, and you guys can draw your conclusion and look for the letter because it's out there somewhere. But I did get some notes on it, and I am going to go over that with you. So allegedly, Annie Cushing wrote this letter to Melani Gibb. Let's go over it now. Yesterday, we posted a video of Melani Gibb's letter to Daybell. Now, remember who your audience is. She was writing that to Daybell. Daybell is the prepper community. Daybell has many people that are LDS, but they also have people that were following the teachings of Chad Daybell. And Melani Gibb got caught up in that. So there's a lot of like people that are like, oh, Melani Gibb is just trying to save her own butt. Melani Gibb is just this. Melani Gibb is just that. I don't know. She did share that with East Idaho News as well. So it's taken as if it's a statement to the general public, which it is and it isn't, because it was directed to Daybell. So people are saying, why didn't you say more about Tylee and JJ? But in my opinion, she was expressing her warning to people that are involved in this belief system more than, a condolence letter, so to speak. So that's my thing. However, Annie Cushing basically wrote a letter back to Melani Gibb, and we are going to go over that right now. So I'm going to paraphrase it because it was given and shared with thousands of people. So I just happen to be one of those people it was shared with, right? So let's get into it right now. Kathryn, welcome to Left Undone, Incomplete Investigations. Please please subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and please share. Ring the bell for notifications. And if you would like to join us as a member, we do have a membership available. You can hit the join button. So thank you and welcome. Let's get started. Welcome back. Okay, let's get started. Now, this is an open letter that Annie Cushing, now Annie Cushing is Tylee's aunt. Annie Cushing has been on the media circuit early on. She was on Dr. Phil. She was on Dateline initially. And she was very emotional because she was the only voice for Tylee. And Tylee is her brother's daughter. Her brother Joe Ryan her brother Joe Ryan passed away in 2018. Annie and her brother and the rest of her family were raised in foster care. So they have some, obviously some issues based on that. And apparently Joe Ryan had some anger issues and some alcohol issues. So I'm not going to really get into that because I think we've discussed it before and it's not really relevant here. But Annie and her brother were estranged at one point, and Annie did back Lori on some accusations against her brother prior to his death. Her brother is also the one that Alex Cox, Lori's brother, Alex, shot with a stun gun and did some time for that. So this open letter to Melani Gibb, she actually wanted to make a post on her Facebook page, but she decided against that. And she says, just know that this is sensitive information and it could follow her online for the rest of her life. So she didn't want to do a public expose. Annie Cushing did publish something in regards to a response to Melani Gibbs' letter in a public forum. Well, it's a private forum because you have to join it, but it has approximately 7,000 members. So stuff gets leaked. You know, if she wanted it completely private, she probably should have just kept it private, mailed it to Melani. I don't know. I'm not even going there. But I am going to go a little bit over it since it's out there. She basically starts out saying that she feels for Melani, that, you know, she knows that she cared about Lori and that she feels bad, you know, that Lori to her was a great friend. And same with Annie. They both adored Lori at one point in their lives. Goes on to say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that she wasn't LDS, that they were all very kind to her always. She doesn't understand how Chad and her could push doctrines that equate human beings to zombies and dark spirits. And why didn't you run for the hills? Why would you even have accepted this? Logically, how could you even have accepted this as a thing, like a real life thing, and not think this is dangerous right from the get-go? And she basically goes on to say this, there's no purpose. You wanted to explain some purpose to why JJ and Tylee had died. There is no purpose to that at all whatsoever. The murders are senseless. The murders are uncalled for. The murders are horrific. Stuff like that. She's kind of like, there's no sense in any of this, that anybody would ever follow this zombie crap. She considers Lori, Chad, and I guess Alex psychopaths. And she is angry that accomplices were willing to lie for them. And we know that's true. Christopher Parrott, lots of people had her back, lied and lied and lied for them. Whether they knew the whole truth or not, they did know a lot. They did know that they were having an affair. They did know that they ran off to Hawaii. They did know that children were missing. They did know all this, right? And they dug their head in the sand. And I agree with that completely. And she feels that, you know, Melani is one of those accomplices because Melani knew stuff. She knew about the zombies. She knew stuff like from the beginning, and she could have walked away sooner, in Annie's opinion. She's very angry and she's fighting, you know, and she doesn't want to be cruel, which is admirable, you know, but she's angry because things could have been different. And we all know that things could have been very different. Now, Melani Gibb is going to be a huge, this is me talking. Melani Gibb is going to be a huge star witness, but the problem that does lie and where a lot of people see the fault in Melani Gibb is she could have stopped things sooner. However, thankfully, she came through at some point. You know, too little, too late. Kids are dead. I don't know. So she also is like, you actually put out there, you know, I'm assuming she's talking about the interviews that she's done and the zombie email that was leaked initially to Left Undone. And she said, you admitted that JJ and Tylee were dead prior to ever finding a body or anything like that. And didn't offer an explanation for why you felt this way so strongly. And again, I'm just paraphrasing. I took some notes on what I read, and I'm just kind of going over those to point out some things that were thrown out there by Annie that she's thinking about. She's angry, basically, that, you know, family members were twisted in the wind over this. Like, people were going insane, worrying about these children. Where are they? You knew that, but you didn't come up to anyone until the very end and offer any support, information, condolences. Again, I am completely paraphrasing this because I was told I cannot read it, and I'm going to respect that. But it is out there, and thousands of people have access to it. And she basically just is all like, why didn't you reach out to family members? Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell people, before this bombshell was dropped? Now, I'm confused a little bit about that because she did. She did go to the authorities quite a while ago, and she did. Maybe she didn't go directly to the family members, but she did go to the authorities. So there's a lot of jumble mumble there, but we're not in the family. I don't know. I don't know what was expected. I don't know who she reached out to, but according to Annie, she feels like Melani Gibbs should have reached out. Was upset that Melani Gibb just never reached out to her personally. And she feels like there's so many unanswered questions. And she's positive that both sides of families are completely still confused and upset and want more answers. It was posted out there that one of the bodies was in an egregious condition. Everybody's mind's like, who, which body, what, we're so after this all get put out there, and we know that Melani Gibb knew that the kids were dead before the bodies were ever found, there's some animosity, there's some anger, there's some frustration from Annie. She's expressing, why didn't you come to the family and tell us more? And then finding out that one of the bodies was in egregious condition, they were like, which body, who, what, we're just waiting for answers. And then she said, your friend Chad, he provided a scale of light and dark, so we're pretty sure we would know which body would be like that. And remember, Tylee was considered dark right from the get-go in Chad's original rating system. And basically, Tylee was among the darkest, and he did rate Tylee very dark back then. She just is like, okay, then you post the bodies were only identified a couple days ago, and now you've already released this big long 7-page statement about this. And she just basically feels like this is a super unwelcome statement. Now, I personally, but I'm not a family member, so I probably don't count, but I personally feel like that statement wasn't really a like, yes, here, I'm so sorry, they're dead, blah, blah, blah. I think this is more of a warning. I think Melani Gibbs' statement, you got to remember who her audience was, although she did share it with the general public, but I'm still convinced that her focus was on warning people that are involved in this belief system. But personally, the family is heartbroken and heart-wrenching that this is the statement that came out of her when she knew so much. She's just, again, just grieving and wanting to get this out. She's like, my niece was buried in a shallow grave on Chad Daybell's property. And do you not understand how angry and how frustrating this is? She's like, this is family animals are dug in backyard graves, not human children. I mean, this is so horrible, which it is. I completely agree with that. And he's putting out like, oh, Melani, you're posting things and you're writing in your letter that people pray to their dead ancestors, that they communicate with them. You don't know if you're talking to clean or dirty spirits and all that we could go back into Melani's letter and read what she was saying, that, how it's deceiving. And he just goes on to say, Melani, you're not in a position to talk to anybody about their belief system, in their religious belief system. This is not anything that correlates with psychopaths murdering children. So pretty much, Annie's pissed that this was the focus, that you're warning people about the religious beliefs when 2 children were just identified, and that's your focus on this whole thing right now, is you're warning other people about this dangerous belief system when these children have just been found dead. So Annie, from what I'm understanding, is she basically is just like, you know what? Why is that more important than any of this? Why is that more important than the fact that 2 kids, our family, according to her, was found dead in such a horrible manner, and your focus is these people's religious beliefs? Quoted her about when Melani had said, I didn't want other people to tell my story before I had the chance to. And I think that that goes back to the fact that the stuff was leaked from the beginning, the zombie email and all that stuff that other people did release out there. That was Melani Gibbs' story, because that's the story she was telling people that she knew. And Annie's like, you waited 5 months to come forward with any of this. And she just believes she had many chances and she could have came forward a lot sooner than that. And she basically has said stuff like, saying you're not mad. Well, to me, that puts you on some kind of, like, you think you're on some kind of higher moral ground by saying you're not mad about the stuff that leaked. That was your story to tell. So then she's like, there was podcasts put out there that said, and then the babysitter made a statement that there was some woman that showed up at Lori's house, didn't see Tylee, and this was like the last time JJ was seen, and you never came forward to say, oh yeah, that was me. That was me. Now, I do know from people that personally know Melani Gibb that she was off the grid. She did not pay any attention to this stuff. She was not watching the news. She was not paying any attention to it. She was in herself trying to get right. And I have been told, now I wasn't in Melani Gibbs' house, but she went off the grid. She didn't watch any news. She didn't know of any of this. That's what I have been told personally, me, Kathryn, about Melani Gibb during all this time. Once that zombie email was released, Melani Gibb hid away. She was done. She turned off the TV. She turned off the news. She didn't watch any of these podcasts. She didn't watch YouTube. She had to figure out in her own head what to do, where she was at. This was, her struggle. Remember, she was bought into this whole BS crap, and she was one of these people that were deceived. She really, truly was. Annie's just pissed. Like, you knew that people were on the internet trying to figure out if it was you, and you never stood up and said, oh yeah, hey, it was me. But if we believe what I personally have been told, that Melani Gibb didn't pay attention to any of this. She wouldn't have known that. She wouldn't have known about the babysitter statement. So what do you think? Put it in the comments. And Annie's just pissed that she learned the story bit by bit, fragment by fragment, people putting things out there, stuff getting leaked, YouTubers and podcasts and everything letting things out. And it just pissed her off, which I can't blame her. But again, did Melani know all this was going on? Or is Melani just playing dumb with all that? Like, I didn't know, But she did tell her friends and people close to her that she was not paying attention to anything that was going on out here. We do know that Annie was very methodical. She kept notes. She has a website with literally analytics of this happened, this is what happened. It is so organized. It's so amazing. It really is. She knows, like, oh, I can tell you exactly when Colby saw. I can tell you exactly when Colby said he talked to Tylee in a FaceTime. I can tell you bit by bit, piece by piece, what happened when. And that was, Colby had said that right about the end of August, right before they moved to Rexburg, that he had talked to Tylee in a FaceTime. And then basically, then they talked to, and then the whole story about the Yellowstone trip came out, and everybody was like, okay, now they're saying that's the last place Tylee was ever seen. So she says she's angry about this. She's very angry about this. But it makes her very upset that Melani Gibb isn't angry at this at all, because Annie's very angry. And she just kind of covers up with bits and pieces that Melani says in her email to Aval, like how 11 years ago she had a spiritual experience that was taught truth from error. And Annie just wants her to know, I'm not making fun of you. If your religion or spiritual experience makes them a better person, who am I to judge? And she feels like, maybe you just thought you were being tested because you wanted more from God, more of God, closer, higher. And she really, really, really wants her to receive professional help. And we've all agreed on that, because we know that Melani Gibb has struggled. We know that she's definitely been, what do we call, brainwashed. She bought the program hook, line, and sinker for quite some time. And Annie just says, yeah, you need deprogramming. Just wants to know. So she has questions like, were you the one that helped Lori steal Charles' car from the airport? And did you know that Lori stole $35,000 from the business account? Did you know any of this? She's asking Melani Gibb. Remember, according to all this, Lori took $35,000 out of the business account. And what's terrible about that is people couldn't get their payroll. You know, I think Charles in that interview was saying, I only have $100 left. She took it all. Again, all those incidents on that day, the canceled flight, all that. She wants to know if Melani Gibb was involved and knew about any of that at the time. She just goes on, like, why did you accuse Charles of luring you in his house using Lori's phone? And remember, that was in that police interview that she said, Melani Gibb did say, oh, yeah, he wanted, he lured me to use the phone and all that. You can go back to that police interview that we posted a couple months ago. And she wants to know, did you watch Charles' video cam recently of him trying to get in that house when he was so worried and concerned about Lori that he was trying to break the deadbolt in to see if his kids were in there, to see if Lori was in there? He was scared. Did you know? Did you see that? Did you see that man doing all that? She goes on, like, why were you laughing about the fact and saying that Charles doesn't have any friends when you were in that police interview? How mean and cruel was that? Why would you do that, Melani Gibb? Those police officers were basically eating out of your hands, Melani and Lori. And did you know? Did you realize? She's basically saying, look at how the rest of us looked at this, Melani. Look at the rest of the world and how we looked at this stuff. And then look at how you went along with it. And of course, this is before anybody was dead, besides Joe Ryan, right? This goes on, when you were sitting there defending the fact that she took Lori's purse and you walked in the police officer station about this, but, realize that he was trying to get Lori help. How Charles was so kind and he still shook their hands, even the way they treated him. She points out they didn't even do that to Alex. Alex was the one that shot Charles, and they didn't even treat Alex like they treated Charles when he was trying to get his wife help. They didn't check him for weapons. They didn't do any of that to Alex, which is true, which has pissed me off from the get-go. And then when you watch how they treated Charles, Annie's completely right on that one. Completely right. And then she wants to know why, and we've asked this question, all of us. Why did you take a 16-year-old girl into that interrogation room with those police officers telling all this stuff about Charles? Why would you agree that Tylee even belonged in there, treating her like she's some kind of adult? This is adult issues. You're talking about infidelity and violence and all that, completely inappropriate to be taking your child into that conversation. Again, I agree completely. Did you happen to notice that Tylee was, calming Lori down or trying to? She had self-soothing behaviors going on here. And then she just feels like it was extremely inappropriate to put Tylee through that. And she was a child, which I agree with that. She says, you went in your letter and you said Charles was supposed to die according to the visions that Lori was having. And she's like, how on earth? And she's like, how is this not a red flag? Like, how would you be like, oh, wow, they have all these amazing visions. That's crazy. Oh my gosh. And it really happened. Wants to know, did you introduce Chad and Lori? Was it Jason Mao? Why are these dates that never made sense? We've heard different dates about when they truly met. She goes on to say the Reddit email, which the Reddit email is the initial zombie email. It was here first, but then it was on Reddit. So Reddit's the one that everybody's referring it to, but it was the original zombie email that I read to you that I got on last year. Episode 11 has it all worded and when I posted it. And she says, I lean more towards September 23rd because that was the date in that zombie email. And yes, that was the date, even though it had a typo of 2019 instead of 2018. But that was in the original zombie email that her friends took that gave to us here. It then wound up on Reddit. So the infamous Reddit email. And she feels that that was the least edited version of the events, which kind of cracks me up because Annie Cushing made fun of that. She called the zombie email fiction, and which was a direct blast, in my opinion, to my channel because I was the one that put it out there and I believed it. And things kept coming true and true and true, validating that. But Annie, at some point, well after that email was posted, went on and said the fiction zombie email. I even made a video kind of annoyed that she had said that because that was valid information that came from a very, very good source. And she did blast it at one point. Annie did. And it was read here first. The Reddit email is unformatted, so it's difficult to read as is. I added formatting and paragraph breaks to make it easier to digest. Well, Annie Cushing, I have the whole thing, the original thing. And yes, it was somebody's notes. They took notes. Her friends took notes and shared the notes that Melani told them. That's why it's not paragraphs. It's notes. Like when you take notes in a class, note, note, note. That's what the original zombie email was. It was not paragraphs. Nobody wrote it out like a letter. You know, it was written out like Melani Gibb told us this about portals and then she said this about Chad, and then she said Tammy's finding out. Like an outline notes. That's what it was. It wasn't so I don't know why she decided she needed to make it into paragraphs for some reason. But then she kind of blasts her about the fact about Melani Pulowski. Why did you go over there to check on the kids with the whole Brandon thing? You know, why did you go? Why would you do that? You undermined Brandon and and I don't know how much Melani Gibb knew about Melani Pulowski when she went to Brandon's parents' house. And she says, do you feel at all responsible about Melani Pulowski stalking Brandon's parents when they had to call 911 on her? Do you feel at all responsible about that? Now, again, that happened well after Melani had been arrested, Melani Pulowski, and for that. But I believe that that was when Melani Gibb was completely off the grid because this was well after the zombie email came out. Like, well, and she's like, well, what about Jason Mao? Are you still his friend? Because he's posted a lot of really memes and stuff, like power trip type memes about being an ex-police officer, scary former police guy. Are you still buddy with this dude? What? She goes on about this film that Jason Mao was involved in, and it's about zombies, and the girl apparently gets sacrificed because she's a zombie, and so it's eerily similar to what probably happened to the kids. So she wants to know how and why are you connected to Jason Mao, and he is bad news. Now, then she goes, okay, so let's go all the way to when you went to Rexburg to visit Lori from September 19th to the 23rd, and she tells you there's no Tylee. Tylee's away at school. You guys are there, but you don't see Tylee, and you don't ask any questions. Oh, she's away at school, a mile away from your house. She's away at school. What? How come you didn't ask any questions about that, Melani Gibb? So Annie is angry. Rightly so on some of this, for sure. But again, you have to remember the letter Melani Gibb wrote was to Aval. She didn't write this to the families. She probably should write one to the families. I think that would be in her best interest right now because people are upset and angry, and she's not apologizing and saying, you know, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, darn it, why didn't I, you know? And I think that's the problem. So she wants to know, you know, why didn't you take responsibility? Why would a 16-year-old with a GED be in a dorm a mile away from home already in college? Like, you didn't ask any questions. Why didn't you visit her? You said that you and Chad and Lori walked around the track at BYU. Why didn't you visit? Why didn't you say, hey, let's go pop in and say hey to Tylee? So she's really makes a lot of sense when she's talking about that stuff because it does. I mean, any normal you, we would be like, let's go visit your kid. Come on, let's go see how our dorm looks. I want to see. How did you decorate it? Is it cool? Does it look cute? Did she like it foofy? Did she want this? Does she have a roommate? let's go meet a roommate. None of that. And so if she was at school, why was her car at Lori's? Like, there's just so many questions that Annie has about that. And again, she points out that Tylee was only 16 at the time. She wasn't even 17. And then she goes on about JJ. She's like, okay, so Lori told you the day before you got there that he had turned into a zombie and you didn't think anything weird about that. You guys made this plan to send him to Kay. She tells you that Kay met him at the airport and no. And that never happened. And then you don't ask about him. He was last seen the day you left. And so she's a little bit annoyed by that because she feels like maybe you could have at least saved JJ if you would have alerted to the Tylee situation at the time. Goes on and talks about the fact that, Chad was labeling people zombies and you didn't really think anything of that. Why would you, not be like, this is not good news. People are being called zombies. Chad had labeled Charles, Brandon, Tammy, all as zombies, and then Charles and Tammy are dead and Brandon gets shot at, and you still didn't think anything of this? Like, nothing? You went and checked on, Melanie asked you to go over and check on the kids at Brandon's, and what? Nothing. She's angry that when Tylee wasn't seen there, why she didn't order a welfare check right then and there. That she could have done it anonymously from the airport when she left, and had probably been able to save JJ if she would have alerted them the fact that Tylee is nowhere to be seen. Just with that, you could have prevented Brandon from being shot. So she's blaming Melani Gibb for a lot, pretty much everything. But again, we have to remember where Melani Gibb's brain was at. She was absorbed in this. She was as absorbed in this as Chad and Lori. And it's really kind of scary when you think about it, because Melani Gibb has kids too. What if Melani Gibb would have continued this whole thought process? So what if she would have gotten rid of her own kids? She got divorced around the same time. She fell into this trap. Her brain had been washed of this. Like, this is something that is in her head. This was her belief system. Why? I can't tell you. It would never be my belief system. I would be like, these people are bat freaking shit crazy. Get me out of here. And by the way, police, these people are batshit crazy. But not everyone thinks the same. Not everyone has the same background. Not everyone has the same thought process. Not everybody is as gullible as some. Some are much more gullible than others. They obviously take advantage of people that are gullible. But she feels like, maybe if you would have caught sooner, Tylee's body would have been found sooner. It would have been, the cause of death might have been easier to determine. Maybe you couldn't have saved her, but maybe you could have stopped a lot of heartache. Maybe you could have gotten some answers for people sooner. And, Lori lied to you and said she met Kay at the airport and took JJ there, and they met, and then JJ went off, but you never followed up with that. You never said, how's JJ adjusting to Kay? How's JJ adjusting to the new environment? Does Tylee miss him? I'm adding some things in here, but this, because I'm paraphrasing this, that was shared with me. I did not see this post. This was something given to other people, and it was shared with me. Just like most things that have happened around here. Then on the day of the welfare check, she says, Chad and Lori called you separately to tell you to lie, and you still didn't immediately respond. You had to wait for your boyfriend to convince you, David Warwick, to convince you to respond and call the police. Why didn't you call her out on this story? Wait, what happened? Lori, you told me that he was with Kay, and now you're telling me Kay's trying to kidnap him. Why this doesn't make sense? This is two opposites, Lori. Annie's like, why wouldn't you have said that, Melani Gibb? Goes on to say, Gilbert police had to come to your door. Rexburg police are trying to get a hold of you, and you did not answer them. You didn't answer anybody until the Gilbert police from Arizona came to your door. And why didn't you tell law enforcement about Tylee? Why would you not say, oh, yeah, that's right. I didn't see Tylee when I was up there either. So Annie Cushing is really calling Melanie out on all of this. Like, you coulda, shoulda, didn't. You are to blame too. And she feels like law enforcement could have been jumped into action sooner, but they were waiting for Melanie Gibbs' reaction. I mean, at this point, in my opinion, this is November. This is the end of November. Lori and Chad have already been married. They're off being married. The kids have been missing since September. I don't know how much good those couple of hours could have done, but I can see that Annie has so much anger and needs to get this out because she's seen every small detail that could have been different. She's like, did you ever tell them about Charles's death, being suspicious, Tammy's death, Brandon's shooting? Did you give them the info that they could tie all those to Joe Ryan? Did you give them info that they could have used to tie all these deaths together? Tammy, she's like, Chad and Lori both openly talked about the fact that Tammy was going to die. And then she died. And you still didn't think it was odd? Ava and her friend Angela said that Chad had been talking about Tammy dying, and we know that Julie Rowe had been blabbing about that for a while too before this. Everybody thought Tammy was going to die except for Tammy, apparently. But so she's blasting her on that. She's like, well, you knew Tammy, you knew they had targeted Tammy to die, and then she died, and you still did nothing. When she didn't die, they labeled her a zombie. So then why did you, and then you're still okay with that? This is how Annie's letter comes across or post, but it does start out, Dear Melanie. This is a letter to Melanie that wasn't actually given to Melanie. It was given to social media, which makes no sense. And then, allegedly, I don't believe it was given to anyone else. But it was posted in a group with over 8,000 members. Just remember that. She calls it private, but it's not private. How could it be private? It's in a group with 8,000 members or more. I haven't checked the numbers. She's like, you didn't know that JJ was missing, but you knew they were looking for him, and you knew that Lori had labeled him a zombie, and you knew that other people that she had labeled a zombie in the past are dead. So didn't you think that might be the conclusion with JJ too? But again, we don't know where Melanie Gibbs' brain was at in all this. She could have been right there in that mess too. Like, she does need some serious deprogramming, and I think she's taken the steps. But logically, it's impossible for us to figure this out, how her brain was working, because it was jacked up. And then she goes on to say, how does your religion allow you to sit passively when the handwriting was clearly that Tammy was targeted, and that the zombie crap on Tammy was a target for her to be killed or dead or whatever, and then it happens. And then the stuff about just the spirits weren't out of her body fast enough. It takes more time. She's not dying fast enough. Like, did you not think any of this was a kind of a red flag? And then she says, you referred to it as sloppy work. Like, doesn't that kind of seem like a mafia mindset when you're calling this sloppy work? Like, these people were targeted and hits. That's how I'm taking that to mean. Like, she's calling it like a mafia mindset. Why didn't, after Tammy died, that she's calling her out. She's saying you knew that she was targeted, and you still didn't go to law enforcement after she died. And even like Alex, she says, in the Reddit email, which was clearly written by an insider. Okay. For the last time, the Reddit email is notes. It was emailed to me, Kathryn, at Left Undone, and I read it here. It was notes. It was not an email. It was not a letter. It was not in paragraphs, because she goes on to say, like, she should have put it in this paragraph form or whatever, but it was her friends, and they took notes, and they did go behind her back, and they did share it with the person that shared it with social media, Left Undone. The next day it showed up on Reddit in written form. But she says, I'd say your boyfriend, David Warwick, he knew the intimate conversations between you. It says Chad and Lori told Melanie that Alex, Kate, and Tylee have now been called zombies. So she says, with that in mind, Alex didn't die until December 12th. So now you knew that Alex was also a zombie, and you didn't do anything to maybe go, hey, Alex, you're no longer that angel that was sent to save Lori from Charles. You are actually a zombie. Hello, hello. Red light, flashing, flashing. Alex, you might want to go to the police and become, warn. She thinks she should have warned Alex, but honestly, do you really think Alex would have fell for that? I don't believe it. Alex was so sucked into those people. I think he had a lot to do with the fact that the kids are dead. Just like, there were 3 psychopaths, and maybe if you could have got them all to play against each other, we wouldn't be where we are. She says, in light of all, and wrapping this up. So she says, in wrapping this up, I ran your letter through some program, and it should have said words like devastated, betrayed, mourn, grieve, apologizing, sorry, regret. So she's like, the stuff in your letter has none of that. Again, her audience is Aval. Her letter was written, this is Kathryn talking. Her letter was written to warn the people in Aval of the dangers of what they are following. Again, maybe probably Melani Gibb owes family members a letter. And I believe the tone may be different. I mean, Melani Gibb, write a letter. Annie's obviously asking you to write a letter. She wrote a letter to you, except for she didn't send it to you, I guess. I mean, why is it published here? It's in a social media group, but not to you, but it says, Dear Melanie. She's like, I'm not suggesting you have a criminal part to play in all this, that law enforcement can determine that. But it doesn't mean that you don't carry some culpability in all of this. And then she's like, if you don't want to come clean and tell us people, the family members that are grieving the loss of these victims, answers the real questions we have for you. She says, I'd suggest that you lay low. If you don't want to help us and you don't want to give us the answers we want, I suggest you lay low and get some serious deprogramming. Apparently, it's kind of what she's saying here. Figure out why you were a target in the first place. And she says, sociopaths are great at detecting people basically like you, people that are vulnerable, people that are gullible. And then she suggested to read 2 books, The Sociopath Next Door, and another one called The Body Keeps the Score. And I guess there are 2 books she highly recommends for Melanie to read. And then she says, until you get some help, and she says, I don't mean that in a bad way. She says, until you get some help, I'm not sure that you would actually walk away with what I think you need to get out of this experience. Basically says, you're not in a position to use this tragedy as a platform to lead others. This desire to teach and lead may have been the kink in your armor that made the whole idea of being part of the 140. So then she's like, okay, Melanie, she's like, okay, Melanie, I don't think that your position here is to just tell everybody the way they should be and who they should follow and what's wrong with I'm leading you. And then she's like, well, maybe that's why you thought you were part of the 140,000, because maybe you think that you're that important to lead the 144,000. And then she just says, let the victims, us, recalibrate, heal. And then she kind of blasts her a little bit, saying, without vying for the media spotlight. And I have a little bit of an issue with that because I don't know. Annie Cushing was on more media than Melani Gibb was. Melani Gibb went to one reporter and she held off a long time. They were supposed to have an interview way back when, and Melani Gibb changed her mind. Melani Gibb has laid low. Melani Gibb did not watch the news. Melani Gibb unplugged from all of this. So Melani Gibb, I don't feel, was looking for the spotlight by any means. Annie has done more interviews. Annie has done more interviews. She's done Dateline. She's done Dr. Phil. She's done, I don't know, she's done more than this. So I know it was before the bodies were found, but still, I don't really think that, I think that's kind of the pot calling the kettle black. And then she's just like, we haven't even had a proper burial for the kids. And please be more sensitive. And then she's like, and pass this on to the rest of your buddies in AVAL who want to similarly try to distance themselves from this story. Media plays on this only to tether you in. Media plays like this only to tether you to this sinking ship more securely. So she's telling Melanie to stay out of the media light. But she's saying share this on AVAL. But then she's saying nobody better share this ever. I don't know, you guys. That makes no sense to me, to be honest. But full of emotions. Obviously, I feel for her. She has had a rough time in life. She's looking now at her brother was possibly killed. So they were estranged. She probably has some sense of guilt with that. And she also has lost Tylee. And I think she was probably regretful that she didn't spend more time with her. But, you know, you can't blame this all on Melani Gibb. It is a whole bunch of people that were involved in a whole bunch of crap. And there's people like Christopher Parrott that covered shit up too. And there's people like Hector that blasted people. There's people like Hector that got into other people's internet or computer in their home and caused havoc. People that were speaking up about this. So there's a heck of a lot of other people to blast in this whole thing than Melani Gibb. All of those people didn't come forward and say anything, and Melani Gibb did. I don't have, you know, I can see a lot of mistakes that Melani Gibb made. But I can also say, thank goodness she actually did talk to her friends, and the Reddit letter was released at some point, because without that, I don't think this case would have gone to where it needs to be. And I think it could have been a lot longer before Chad was in jail, and before Lori was in jail, and before those bodies were found of those children. And you know what? The true victims in this are 4 people. Tylee, JJ, Charles, and Tammy. And then anybody attached to them. You know, Tammy's kids that are confused right now. Some of them are very much by their dad's side. Maybe they'll come around and realize what happened at some point. I know this is big, this is huge, this is heavy. And some of them are, you know, probably going, oh man, yeah, shit, this did happen. Now what are we going to do? How do we continue in life with this? No, you know, our life has changed forever. So I think Melani Gibb will always have a sense of some kind of guilt, but thank God she did spill it at some point, because she is going to be a huge witness. I mean, what else can you say? So thank you for watching Left Undone, Incomplete Investigations. Here is another video. This one's probably going to get me in a little bit of trouble, because somehow it was posted that this shouldn't be posted, but then it was said to be posted to be spread along. So I got it from that. People saying, yes, share this with your friends. Share this with your AVAL friends. Share this. And then it was shared, but I don't know. Thank you. Thank you for watching Left Undone, Incomplete Investigations. I'm Kathryn. I will see you on Saturday at our regular Saturday morning, 10:30 Pacific a.m. time live that we do every Saturday. And if you're a member, we'll see you at happy hour on the last Friday of the month and the second Friday of the month. Thank you for watching Left Undone, Incomplete Investigations.